right. Sorry. Yeah, as I was saying, sorry. So the gym right now is the perfect place to be to get out of this horrible heat wave. Well, I wouldn't say heat wave, just heat, generally speaking, that we've been having this past week or two. So yeah, I'm the only one who's actually like, because most people, a lot of people who work from home or like in the office, because like the UK does not cater to heat well at all. Like it's not like Florida or wherever, like where they have aircon in every single building because they're used to it, where we don't have aircon anywhere except the gym.
The gym, yeah.
The gym.
That's the thing. It's so fun. I was talking about this earlier in the week with somebody, and it's like the weather in the UK has been awful for like the last 7 or 8 months, and everybody has just spent all this time moaning about the weather, and then suddenly it's like 360 and it's absolutely boiling, and then none of us can cope.
No, that's the problem with Brits, is that we're never satisfied with whatever the weather is, really.
No,
If
but
it's
I
too
do
hot,
agree.
we'll complain. If it's too cold, we'll complain. If it's mediocre, we'll complain. Never satisfied.
We do, but we do just kind of instantly, like you say, complain about it and stuff like that. But then, I don't, like I say, we just aren't set up to deal with it. We aren't set up to deal with snow. We aren't set up to deal with heat.
No, we're set up to deal with mugginess, I think.
Yeah, we're just good at grey.
Although I always say to people, like, if like people who aren't from the UK, like if you just want to start a conversation with any person from UK, just talk about the weather
every time,
and you'll be fine. Just talk about the weather and whatever, anything like that, and you'll be completely fine.
Ultimate UK small talk, isn't it? The weather.
It really is. Oh, the weather's crap. Oh, the weather's nice. Oh, this and that. The thing is, it's just weird because it never gets boring. For some reason, I never mind talking about the weather. I've already gotten to a point where I'm like, talking about the weather.
So the theme for this podcast for the next 45 minutes is the weather.
Yeah, and we cycle the same like small talk every year, depending on the season. Like it's the same phrases, the same like stuff every single year. Oh, so it's got a bit lighter, hasn't it? Well, yeah, no shit. Like it has got a bit lighter. That's what happens.
Happens every year.
Happens every goddamn year. Weird that. Oh, it's getting a bit darker lately. It's like, yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah. It's getting colder. It's winter, mate.
Yeah, that's probably why. Yeah, we're all victim to it, though. We all do it.
Beautiful. So, thinking about the weather, then, does that impact your training or change your training style?
Well, it makes the climbing gym fucking boiling because it's like a tin shed and there's no aircon. So, yeah, that last night was a sweaty mess. Wasn't as bad as I actually thought it was going to be, considering how hot it was yesterday. Just had to train with a shirt off, which I don't usually do in public anyway. No, it wasn't too bad actually. It didn't really affect. I still felt like I climbed just as well, so it wasn't too bad for me. I guess for you going outdoor on runs though, it's probably a bit different.
Yeah, so from a running point, so I did intervals, and it was a killer because I did them right at lunchtime as well, so about 12:30.
Yeah,
it's kind of starting to get towards the hottest part of the day, and I don't know, I guess it's more about being prepped, making sure you've got hydration with you, making sure you're fluided up before and things like that. As soon as the weather changes, so I generally do a lot of my running to heart rate. But as soon as the weather changes, that kind of goes out the window a little bit because obviously it's hotter, you're running hotter, your heart rate's higher, you're working harder, and all of those kind of things. So from that point of view, it absolutely makes a difference. Obviously, the gym work, like you say, it's a beautiful air-conditioned room. You don't even have to think about it. It is quite nice. But it's funny because it's like as soon as the weather starts to change, it's like had the conversation in the last week, probably about 3 or 4 people. It's like, got to get ripped for the summer now. Got to change my diet for the summer, and that's the big thing now. Everyone's kind of like, right, it's sunny, let's get prepped for the summer. So I think for a lot of people, their training and their kind of, I don't know, their reason for training is going to be changing now over the coming weeks and months. My instant advice was you should have been doing that during the winter. But
you should start that in like even February, March at the latest.
Yeah,
like it's at least like 12 weeks if you can.
It's that mad one, isn't it? I'm going on holiday next week. I'm going to get shredded this week for the
holiday. Right. Yeah, you should start that 12 weeks ago. Yeah, no, that's luckily for me, I stay lean all year round, so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, but I'm generally the same.
Right, I don't fluctuate that much at all. I've like a kilo here and there, but
exactly. I'm generally the same. I kind of sit between 70 and 72 kilos, and let's be fair, like being
I'm
sat
like
at 72 kilos isn't a big deal for me. Yeah,
I'm like 65, 67 ish most of the time. Like I weighed myself yesterday or the day before, it was 67. I generally stick around that generally, which is, I mean, you're always going to have fluctuations.
Yeah, to be fair, I haven't weighed myself since probably last year, but so I'm going to guess right now that I'm about 70 because that's generally where I sit, regardless of what I do. And again, you can kind of tell yourself, it's like, I've put on weight, I've lost weight, I'm a bit soft, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You kind of like, again, it goes with experience, doesn't it? You sort of know your own body, you know, if you're feeling a bit underweight, you know, if you're feeling a bit overweight, whatever it might be. But yeah, I generally, as long as I don't spend all of my time eating junk 24/7, kind of sit around that sort of sensible 70
You should
kilo.
do a test next time you're in.
Yeah, I might actually give it a crack.
Before you start or whatever.
Before I start, yeah. I've seen that a few times because obviously the one you guys have got in the gym, people will smash something out for an hour, be completely dehydrated.
Yeah, literally, and then go do a test.
Then go do their test.
Yeah, that's not the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Update from last week, my shoulder, because I blew my shoulder out last week. So what was that? It was on Tuesday. I think we did the podcast on either Wednesday or Thursday. I trained my leg stuff on Thursday. I left out all the arm stuff. Then Friday I was meant to go climbing, but I didn't fall into fruition in the end. I decided just to not go climbing at all, so I left it. And then I spoke to our friend Robin, the physio. She gave me some stuff to do. So I basically just spent a couple of days doing rehab Saturday, Sunday because I was in work, so I didn't do any training.
Yeah.
And then Monday it started to get better. And then Monday I trained normally. I did everything bar shoulder press, and it was fine. And then I climbed yesterday, and yeah, completely fine.
Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. A little bit, but like I put it through its fucking paces last night. Like I was doing a lot of explosive kind of movements and stuff. I'll put in a couple of clips. I've got some really nice dynos actually. I'll send you those after this. One I'm really happy with, and one I'm really close to getting that I'll try and get next time. But so I was putting it through like and locking out my arm and like really wrenching. I was doing a lot of kind of dynamic stuff and had nothing. So it's definitely there now. It's just got to make sure I keep on top of. I think I just got to keep on top of the rehab for a bit and just. It was my external rotation was the problem. It was just my rotator cuff. So. Yeah, and then I'm probably going to spend some time working on strengthening that now because it's an area that I need to, because it's actually really important for climbing anyway. Because a lot of times when you have to like compress into the wall this way, like squeeze yourself into the wall, you need to have that good external rotation to like just compress. So that's an area I need to work on anyway. So once it's kind of feeling, maybe then after maybe starting next week, I'll start doing some strengthening, like proper weighted stuff on it. But right now I'm just banding for warm up and stuff like that. But yeah, so it turned out to be.
Yeah. And that's like a really good thing though, where it kind of shows just that sort of like just stepping back, listening to your body for like 24 hours, and then what is it going to be within 2 to 3 weeks? You're going to be back using that as standards.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel comfortable with it now. There's no like, it's good because a lot of it can sometimes like when you're scared to then use it, you can kind of be a little bit like, oof, but you kind of just got to put it through its paces a little bit sometimes just to really test it properly.
I think that's the thing. Yeah, like you do a lot of injuries as well do come down to that. You sort of you lose that kind of trust in the joint, as it might be. You start to worry that it's like it's worse than it is, or you worry that it's going to go again as soon as you use it. And sometimes you just like you say, you just need to put that trust out there and go for it. Do the right things building up to that point and just start to use it. It's when you rush back into it. So I hurt it today and then tomorrow I'm going to just start lifting heavy on it again. Well, I'll just step back and like you say, just build up, use bands, get it back to full strength, bit of rehab and so on, and then they say 2-3 weeks later, it's all good again.
Yeah,
I think a lot of injuries are where people don't just they don't listen. I mean, barring something just happening, like so obviously accidents happen all the time, but with a lot of injuries, you can start to feel them coming. Like the amount of times you talk to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, my shoulder's a little bit sore today," and then the next day they'll be like, "Oh, it's still a little bit sore, but I've just worked through it," and then 3 days later they're like, "My shoulder's done." It's like, well, perhaps at that very first niggle, if you had just been like, my shoulder's a little bit sore, do you know what? Tomorrow I'll just concentrate on lower body, and then maybe I'll just start rehabbing it and going light again instead of like whacking that max load through it. And it sounds like you've done all the right things to get it exactly.
No, I think I'm happy I didn't climb on Friday and just left it. What I did instead is I went around Bristol and just was scouting out some possible spots for outdoor bouldering, and it was a really
Nice.
hot day, and I was doing a lot of like hiking up some stuff and like, you know, trunching through trees and woods and just getting a good bit of active recovery instead in the heat.
Brilliant.
And it was it was just really fun. So I thought, you know, that'll get the blood going to my body.
Yeah.
Just make that a bit of fun. I found some really good spots as well for the future. So that was a lot. So I thought I made it like a productive, you know, I still got out and did something. It just wasn't what I originally intended, but I was just like, me missing one climbing day is not going to kill me. So
yeah, it's like I said before, it's one now for the sake of tens further down the line.
I could still, well, the only thing I ever worry about with missing climbing sessions is my fingers losing strength, but I can still train my fingers on the hangboard. So I still did that because that's not going to stress my shoulder. I'm just hanging by my fingers. So I just did that. I carried on doing that, and then coming back in yesterday, it was completely fine.
Brilliant.
So yeah, no, it's all good. You just got to be smart with what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think like the whole active recovery thing as well. It's like I'm a huge believer in that. I think with a lot of injuries, like if you get a bad injury, it's really easy then to just sit on the sofa, to eat all the crap food and do all of the wrong things. Your mindset changes and everything. You just become sort of like really bogged down by the fact that you're injured. Or like you say, you go out and you do something productive. You go out there, you walk around, you do something that's going to stimulate you in another way. That ultimately what you're doing there is you're getting yourself excited for the next block of training. You're going out there, you're finding those locations, and it's exciting you for what comes next. Right. And I think that's like a really important thing. And it's the same like with any injury. It's like, well, I could sit here, I could, and I'll use my ankle as an example. When I rode that quite badly, it's like I could sit here, I could let it freeze up for like the next 48 hours and I could feel really crap about myself. Or I could start trying to get it moving again. I could start trying to get it working. What can I do with it? Can I walk on it? Can I move it? What things do I need to do right now to recover it? As opposed to feeling sorry for myself. And as soon as then you start to see those progressions, so like my ankle, the first 24 hours, it was super stiff. I virtually couldn't stand on it. But then getting closer to 48, I was starting to kind of like just silly things like writing the alphabet with my foot and things like that. It's like, well, that's a huge change from where it was 24 hours ago. So already feeling good about myself, instead of getting hung up on the fact that it's like I can only write the alphabet with my foot, it's like I can now write the alphabet with my foot. What can I do in another 48 hours? And I think that's where it goes right back to what you said then. It's like, right, you don't want to go climbing, you don't want to risk aggravating that injury, but what you can do is get yourself excited about what you could do next week, what you could do the following week, whatever it might be. And I think that's just a really important thing to keep people sort of in the game a little bit.
And you'll find that like people who are in shape generally will recover a hell of a lot quicker than people who aren't in shape. So if you someone who's in shape compared to not in shape, they fuck their shoulder up or whatever.
Yep.
The person who's not in shape will recover a lot slower than the person who is in shape.
100%. And I think as well, if you're motivated to get back to training, you're going to come home and you can do the right things. It's like you're not just going to sit there and eat ice cream. Right? You might, but you're probably not just going to sit there
in this weather. I'm
for 24 hours.
Ice cream. I've had a fair bit already. I can't lie.
Fair play, but like it's so easy just to fall into that mindset that it's like I'm done. And there are a lot of people that do get injured and don't come back from those injuries. It's what they needed. It's almost the excuse they needed not to train going forward. Whereas again, obviously for other people, it's kind of like, right, this is my excuse to get back to where I was. I think the mistake that some people do make when they're coming off of an injury is that they can go straight back in where they were. So the shoulder is like I don't know, you've just said like you're not overhead pressing for a little bit. It's making that mistake of then going back and being right, I'm going to throw all my max plates on and start overhead pressing at full weight. It's like, well, you need to build up again, and very quickly you'll be back up there. No, exactly. And I mean, I've got bench on Friday, so I'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's just, it's all just about listening to your body, really. 100%.
And for me, it's a problem I always, because when I'm in the gym and I'm like talking to people, like, and people are like, either like, we always get a bit creative, in the gym, and we have fun and we try and make stuff up. So a lot of the time, whenever that happens, I'm doing it cold, like, so I've got to be like restrain myself from like having fun sometimes. Got to be like, I want to try that. Like, I want to show someone how to do a muscle up or something, and I have to be like, oh no, I can't really.
I can't right now.
I can't because of my shoulder.
And that's the thing as well. It's so much easier to demo something to somebody than it is to talk them through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like using the muscle up, for example, it's like you can kind of explain the stages to them or explain what they're looking to do, but sometimes it's easier to just do it, or sometimes people just need to see it. Like we're visual, so it's like you generally need to see that exercise in motion and understand those little cues. But like you say, if you've got a sore shoulder and you're going straight into a code muscle up, it's probably not the best thing to do.
No, I mean, that's a muscle up's a pretty shoulder killer, I'm not gonna lie. They will kill your shoulders.
Yeah, I'm gonna imagine there's been a few injuries caused over the years as well through bad muscle ups. So
yeah, I mean, we know Mr. Morgan, he blew his shoulder out doing a muscle up.
Is that what he did?
Yeah, a while ago. Yeah, he did it. He did one like cold, and then blew his shoulder up. Because it's such a dynamic movement. Like one, you're wrenching at the bottom end, you're throwing yourself up, you're rotating, then pushing it backwards. So you're literally taking it from here all the way to here. Like it's going through such full range. It's nuts.
It's a huge range of motion. Yeah.
And like it's going through that fast and like, you know. So yeah, no, always be warmed up before you do muscle ups. Ideally, that would be my advice to anyone. Yeah. Cool. You training today?
Yeah, absolutely. So what have I got today? I got so this week I've just gone back into like Olympic lifting block. So because of my ankle injury, I limited how much Olympic lifting I could do. So purposely kind of just kept it really with sort of power cleans and the odd clean. And then this week, as my ankle mobility is coming back, I started doing a lot more kind of snatch work, getting under the bar a bit more. So, and today I think I've got a clean session. So yeah, quite looking forward to that one. So I find the Olympic stuff as well, it goes hand in hand with sort of training for like the obstacle course stuff for me, because I can get super strong doing it, which is obviously an advantage, but it's the explosiveness of doing those exercises. So like we all love a good bicep curl, but that isn't going to do anything for my kind of like my actual functional fitness. It's just going to make my arms look good during the summer. Whereas obviously the Olympic stuff, I'm kind of, it helps me to get explosive. It helps me to get strong, gets me confident using all of my body and things like that. So I'm just going to go through like a sort of 8-week block now of Olympic lifting, running, and that'll run sort of side by side with my running straight into my next race, which is in 8 weeks. So yeah, looking forward to that. So it's quite nice as well, because I haven't done a proper Olympic block since, I think most of this year, just the odd little bit in here and there. It's quite nice because I almost go back to feeling like a beginner again, like feeling the movements out, getting under the bar and that. And it's quite nice actually. And again, what will happen is like the first 2 or 3 weeks, I'll see like this really quick progression.
Oh yeah.
And then obviously it'll start to plateau out on those kind of final 4 or 5 weeks. But yeah, looking forward to that one. Although I'll be there like Wednesday lunchtime, so I'm sure the gym is going to be absolutely rammed at that time. So
wait, today at lunchtime?
Yeah,
it might be all right.
Let's hope so.
Yeah,
but yeah, so good. That should be a good one. It definitely beats today getting out and running in this weather. So
yeah, true.
It's going to be hot.
Yeah, speaking of periodization, I've got into like, I'm so bad at like, well, maybe not bad, it's probably a good thing, but like getting really, really far ahead of myself. So I'm currently in like, like I break my period blocks into 12 weeks, and I'm currently like in one. I've basically written the next one, which I'll start in July. And I've basically almost finished the one I didn't start until October.
Yeah.
I'm so like far ahead because I love making programs, especially for myself.
Yeah.
So like, I can't help but think of what I want to be doing. Like October is ages away, but I'm already basically ready for that, which is nice because once you can kind of work backwards as well a little bit. Feel like, okay, if I've got all this stuff in my head that I want to do, I need to fit it all in. Maybe if I can't put it in this block, I'll put it in the next one. So I need to start making the next one. My perfect dream would be to have a like 48 weeks, 4 12-week blocks that I could cycle indefinitely for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Help me with climbing 2 days a week. That like I would just continually improve forever. That would be the ultimate goal. That I would never have to change a single thing. I would just have to follow this program for like forever, and that would be it then.
Nice. Do
That would
you,
be
because you're always kind of thinking ahead like that, do you always finish the 12 weeks that you're on, or the block that you're on?
I used to be crap at it, but now
Yeah.
I do
You
stick
always
to it. And
stick,
usually it's 11 weeks, and then the 12th week is usually a deload /
Yeah.
testing PRs.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I have a deload. I may do like a different workout, just something fun or whatever, or just So I'll test it. Usually what I'll do is I'll have 1 or 2 workouts where I spread my PRs out. So I'll do like, I don't know, a pull-up one or a deadlift one or something, whatever it is. And then for the rest of the workout, I'll just do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Much. And then and then maybe I'll probably still climb the same amount, but the workouts will just be less.
Yeah. I absolutely know so many people that kind of just work in a very, very similar way. They're always sort of thinking ahead, and as a result of it, like they've been training for like 15-20 years or whatever it is, but they've never completed a program because they kind of like get 6 weeks, 8 weeks into it, whatever it might be, and then they're thinking about the next one, and
they just get really excited. It's just really exciting.
Yeah. And then they're kind of also ready for a bit of a change up and things like that, where they want to start bringing things in, or they can see where they can do it and so on.
Yeah.
The mistake I've made a lot, I'll use something like I'm trying to think. I was coming off of an injury a few years ago, and I coming off the back of that injury, I just wanted to get strong, so I was doing 5x5, the 5x5 workout program, which is essentially 5 sets, 5 reps. And obviously it's just like kind of linear progression, squats, deadlifts, bench press, and then there's like kind of pull-ups, overheads, and just like basic powerlifting. And if you follow the program perfectly, the idea is obviously that you start light, and then over a set period of time you should be getting up to your PRs and beyond. But it is so easy in those early weeks to just be like, I can lift so much heavier than this. And I start to get ahead of myself in that sense. And then you make that mistake that by the time you're up there trying to like get close to your heavier lifts, you've already blown your legs up. You haven't followed that progression.
You need,
and then you end up not hitting your PRs or not breaking your PR by very much.
I've written this into, because I'm just having 1 or 2 people test it for me now, but I've written like a 4-day week, like athlete concurrent program. So like a program which someone could follow, and they'd be like an all-rounder essentially. And I've written in there like, because I have like percentage of 1 rep max strength progressions on a couple of exercises, and I've literally written, say, even if you feel stronger that week and you can do more, don't just like the Russians were big components of this as well. They'd have like days where they do a lot less volume, even though they could do more, because you just need to, like, I'd always, whenever I jump up to a new weight, I'll always just give my body a chance to adjust, just slow. And just give your body a chance. Otherwise you'll plateau, or you'll injure yourself or something like that. You just got to, because there's no rush with training. I hate the feeling of being rushed. You really do have to take your time with it. Otherwise things are just going to go wrong. You do just need to ease yourself into things.
100%. I 100% agree. It's like for those guys, let's say someone's PR on a squat is 100 kilos. They should have they shouldn't feel bad about putting 40 kilos, 50 kilos on the bar and repping them out. And that's the mistake that people make very, very often, is like, right, my max is 100, and they'll be working around that 100 number all of the time. All of their reps are going to be sort of like 90, 95, 97, whatever it might be. And there's so much value in just like peeling the bar back and going light. I mean, the days that I'm going to go for a PR, for example, I'm starting light. Like all of my deadlifting, I start at 50 kilos and I work up from there, regardless of whether I'm going to stop at 100 kilos or if I'm just going to keep going. I do that obviously on a session basis, but it's the same if I was looking for some kind of linear progression. It's very much like on my early block, it's going to be 50s. I'm going to be going high rep, and then as that starts to get heavier and the reps come down, then you're working towards it. But I think that's the mistake that a lot of people kind of make in the gym, and it goes back to something we said right at the beginning, is that kind of insecurity, and there's obviously the vanity of around being around other guys in the gym and that kind of thing, is that people just want to rack on the heaviest weight possible every time and just through it. And you have to let your body recover. You have to let your body get comfortable with the movement.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even like, yeah, the Russian front way of doing things is, 70 to 85% of one rep max is basically all you work in most of the year round.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the Ukrainians, they kind of work within like 90-95%. I think it's the Ukrainians that do that. So they work a lot heavier.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think most of the time it depends on what kind of program you're following. Like if you're kind of just like linearly periodized over 10, 12 weeks, you're probably going to start at 80%, go to 82.5, 85, and so on up until about maybe 92.5, 95, and then test your PR.
Yeah, 100%.
So there is some nuance to that for sure.
Oh, yeah,
but, if we're doing technique work, like, 50-60% is going to do it. But then what's weird is it's hard to test someone's technique at 30-40% of their 1RM and it will look perfect. But as soon as you stick 90 to 100 on the bar, it's going to break down. Like that's just going to happen. Like you cannot maintain the same level of technique at that weight. It's basically impossible. Like you watch any powerlifting event where someone's doing a deadlift, 90% of the time their back is going to round.
Yep.
It doesn't mean they've got poor technique. It's just your back cannot handle
really fucking heavy
400 kilos.
Yeah.
You cannot keep your back, like your scaps, like packed down on 400 kilos of weight. Like it's not gonna happen. Your legs can pull it, but there's no way. Like, or like your knees caving in during a squat or something like that. I mean, or like there being a bit of shake, or like just being a little bit of like, you want to keep it as perfect as possible always, but there's gonna be some breakdown somewhere because you're pushing at your absolute limit. So you shouldn't be worried too. People should never worry too much about like technique breaking down at really, really heavy lifts, like super heavy. It's going to happen a little bit.
No, I completely agree. And I think that's where, like, with the Olympic lifting block that I'm going into now, I'm focusing on those lighter weights in a moment and nailing my technique. And technique is super important with the Olympic lifting because I'm getting under the bar, and there's obviously the kind of margin for error, which obviously then turns into a margin for injury, is quite high when you've got a heavy weight kind of that dynamically being thrown over your head. However, it's just one of those key things that is like my heaviest snatch PR, which I can't remember what it is off the top of my head right now, so I don't want to make up some random number, but I guarantee, I don't even think I have it on video, but if I was to watch it back, if I did, the technique would be ugly.
Yeah, right.
It probably would have been slow. It would have been clunky. I probably would have been sat in like the low squat position for ages before I got my balance and lifted it and things like that. It's one of those things that, yeah, for that one rep, it will be ugly, but I got it over my head and that becomes my PR. It's knowing that when I'm back down doing those lower percentages, those kind of 60-70% weights, that my technique is bang on and I know the movement. And then as I start to progress through them, what I don't want it to be doing is breaking down at 80, 85, 90 is when we're hitting that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's not like you shouldn't try and keep it good because there's obviously certain biomechanical things in place you kind of want to keep the same so that the movement is almost as, I don't like using the word optimal, but like as good as you can make it. So that the movement is efficient, that's fine. Like you want to make sure you're keeping the technique as well as you can, but you shouldn't like feel bad if it breaks down a little bit.
It's keeping the technique as well as you can with the stimulus that you're using, i.e. the weight. Like just going in and trying to like you'll follow, like I'll stick with the snatch. It's like to get a heavy snatch above my head, I'm following the same cues, the same movement of getting it from the ground to over my head. It's just that exactly as you say, lifting, let's say doing the bar, 20 kilos, lifting that up over my head is a lot different than snatching a bar with 60 kilos on it. So 80 kilos in total over my head. Like the difference is massive. It's instantly going to be slower. It's instantly going to be less explosive. You're going to muscle through it more, things like that. So the technique changes, but exactly as you say, you try to keep it as, like say, optimal as possible, as accurate as possible, with that understanding that it does break down sometimes.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
a great example of that is like kind of just translating that to the running. So yesterday I was doing intervals, which again in this heat was probably the stupidest idea that I could have done because obviously your heart rate's high and you're getting hotter quick. But for my interval training, I'm going to be running at sprint. I'm not a sprinter. Now I've got good technique as through my sprints, but that isn't the movement, the optimal movement for me running an ultra, for example, because I'm obviously not going to be sprinting an ultra. And again, I mean, that would be something. But it's the same sort of thing. It's like, it's not so much that it's that the movement has broken down, or the movement pattern has obviously changed from what I'd be doing if I was just running, like, say, that pace for an ultra. But what I'm doing is I'm doing the best movement I can do at that time to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. And that's kind of what it is when it comes to the lifting. When people are going for like their 1 rep max, for example, it's like you're doing the movement that you can do at that time to get that weight down and up as efficiently as possible without getting injured. And like you say, sometimes it becomes a little bit ugly.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Do you, when you go for your testing, do you always go for 1 rep, or do you do like 3s and 5s?
Generally just 1 most of the time. Most of the time, yeah. Depends. It's weird because I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this block now, because I'm doing yeah, I mean, with things like if I'm testing the distance of my broad jump or my box jump, that is going to be like max height or max distance. The thing is, I've been doing trap bar hang cleans instead of deadlift, so I'm not really sure if I'll test my trap bar deadlift 1RM. I might still do it anyway, just to see where it's at, because I got 150 keys last meso when I was just doing deadlift.
Nice.
And I'm going, am I going back in? I'm trying to remember now if I'm going back into doing just normal deadlift. But if I am, I might just test to see where it's at anyway, just so when I go in, because I'm going to be working a cluster set for this next 12 weeks. So I'm going to be working in cluster sets. So for people who don't know, so I'm going to be working, instead of just doing, it's a great way of increasing volume. So instead of just doing like a set of 3, I'll do a set of 4, but with a 20-second break after the second rep, and then do 2 more reps, just to sort of accumulate. Yeah, no, I'm doing trap bar deadlift cluster. So I'll either test the trap bar or just base it off whatever my 1RM was 12 weeks ago. So I'll just work in that. But most of the stuff, yeah, I probably won't do too much PR testing. I might do a bench PR just because I haven't done one in forever. And I know for a fact my bench is currently the strongest it's ever been. So I'm kind of curious to see where I can get that. But yeah, it depends really. So I'll probably just test. It depends on what I've been doing during that block really, and then I'll test from there. But I know I want to test my broad jump, and I know I want to test my box jump. I'm probably not going to do any pull-up testing or anything like that. So yeah, I'll just I might do a max rep pull-up test because I haven't done one of those in forever. But yeah, apart from that, probably just stuff like that really. Depends on the exercise, depends on the movement, depends on the block.
Yeah. It's funny because the only exercises really that I would ever think about my PRs on would be my squats and my deadlifts. Even with the Olympic stuff, like cleaning and sort of snatching and things, I'm not overly worried about PRs on them anymore. There was a time when I really was, and it really bothered me, and I wanted to make sure I was kind of like always doing them. But I've kind of found with those kind of exercises, I'm more interested in the longevity of those exercises because they have a lot of benefit. I mean, as long as I'm slowly seeing a sort of progression on them, or at least kind of getting close to my max numbers, I'm happy. But definitely my squats and my deadlifts, they're the ones that I tend to focus on if I was going to PR. And generally the way I sort of do it is like throughout my block is it will start to drill down. So I'll do a lot of stuff at 5 rep and I'll do a lot of stuff at 3 rep. And then generally when I go for a PR, I'll make sure it's kind of in the later stages because obviously I should be kind of stronger just if that block's gone well. But I won't kind of say, right, today's my PR testing day. What I'll kind of do is just any time in the next couple of weeks, if I'm feeling good when I'm deadlifting, I'm going to see how far I can take it. And then what I generally do is kind of go like 5 reps, do a few at 5 to get warmed up, 3s. And then I'll skip to 1s and I'll just start to see how I can progress that 1 rep on it. And do you know what? Sometimes you just like, do you know what, today wasn't the day. It didn't actually feel so good. And then other days it's like, just keep putting those 2.5s on and let's see what happens.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that tends to be the pattern I follow. And I think most of the times that I've hit a PR, it's been because of that. I've given myself a window at the end of my block when I'm going to do it. And I always wait till that day where it feels good, because you know how it is. Sometimes you pick the bar up and it feels like you're lifting the Titanic, and then another day you do it. And better. And on that day, it's like, right, let's see how quickly I can get up to those higher reps at those higher weights at 3 rep. And then I'll just start progressing. And yeah, and generally once I hit the ones, that's when I'm kind of like, right, we're in the zone now, let's do it. Yeah. You kind of get happy. Yeah, for me as well, my mind falls into it then. It's like, right, we're on now. I'm enjoying it.
I'm sure you do the same, but I find this, I don't personally like, I used to do it, but not anymore. But when I never use like headphones in the gym anymore, period. I just listen to whatever shit is on the radio.
Yep.
Like, it's people that like, they have to have music before they do a set. So they'll wait for like their music to like be wherever they want it to be, and then they'll do their set. And I can't, I hate doing that, because it's like, I need to know that I can do it even if Taylor Swift is on the speakers. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
I have to, I don't want to wait for a drop in a song to like pull the weight. I've done it in the past, but I don't do it anymore.
No.
Like, you want to know that, like, I feel it's much more pure. You're not as psyched. You're not as like, you just have to, I don't know. I feel like that's, because you're not always going to, if you need, it's one of those weird things. I kind of got this from Goggins, but like, if you're ever in one of those situations and you need to like be in that zone, what happens when you don't have your music?
Yeah.
Do you know 100%. What I mean? Like, how do you know that, like, it is like a stimulant, like it's to get you psyched? And I get that people need to use different tools, and that's fine. Some people might use smelling salts, I don't know. But like, for me personally, I just don't like using music.
Yeah, so I'm the same. I used to listen to music all the time, and then I'm just trying to think. I think what happened is I went out for a run one day and I just didn't wear headphones. I was like, I enjoyed that so much more.
Yeah, no,
I was just in the environment more, and I was like, wow, it was almost like I was missing out on something.
It makes it more like meditation, I find, especially with running.
Yeah,
like
exactly. And then I just stopped. From then, it was just a blanket thing. I stopped, and this is going back like quite a few years. And yeah, I'm the same. You'll probably notice as well, when I'm in the gym, I have very minimal rest between my sets. So I get a lot of volume done in a short period of time.
Right.
And I do that on purpose. But of course, then if I'm going for like PRs, especially when I'm getting down to those 1 reps, I might give that rest period slightly longer, but it's probably still a lot shorter than other people's. Yeah, I simply couldn't be sat in the gym waiting to get to the right part of the track. And just, I'd feel like I'm wasting my own time. It's like, if anyone's going to get me in the zone and anyone's going to get me psyched up, it's going to be me. Yeah. And it's usually, like you say, it's the excitement there of lifting that bar. It's like, right, I've got on another 2.5 and it felt easy. Right, let's put on another 2.5. It still feels easy. And that's what motivates me to get towards my PRs. I've been in situations before, back when we were fighting, where we were getting I was cornering someone, we were getting someone ready to fight, and they played the wrong entrance music for them. And this guy literally went from being a straight up killer to just like, he was like a baby throwing his toys out of the pram because they'd messed his music up. And because they'd messed his music up, they couldn't get him in the zone and all of this kind of thing. And it was like, we really I mean, the guy did go on, like, as soon as he got hit in the face, he was back in the fight. But it was one of those things where it was like, he needed that music, his ring entrance music, to get him psyched for his fight. And we were just like, no, like, just ignore all of that. We were just making shit up at the time. We were just anything we could do to try and get him motivated, but he just couldn't snap out of it. He had to hear that piece of music.
It reminds me of when Mike Perry was doing his walkout and he was meant to have the Halo theme and they ended up playing Halo instead.
Yes.
And he just embraced it. Like, he totally just embraced it. Obviously,
and that's the way to do it, is just embrace it, because a song shouldn't make or break your fight.
That's what I mean. Like, a song should never make or break a set. It should never make or break a set.
And I think that's exactly it. But yeah, actually seeing like a light heavyweight guy fall apart because they didn't play the right music. It was just mad.
Yeah, it's weird. So weird.
I think we were just, I think like I was still like, we got him out to the cage and we had him in the corner and he was still going on about it, still not focused on the fight. And I think I just ended up like talking crap to him. I was like, he's laughing at you now because you're upset over your music. And I was just trying to get the guy angry.
Yeah, right.
And like I say, he did end up just going out there and like battering the guy. But yeah, it's just funny how like people sometimes just need those little cues. They need these things to get them in the zone and stuff like that. Like, it's like when you see guys like get into the cage and they have to do like a certain thing. They have to like walk around so many times, or they got to touch the corners or whatever it might be. All these kind of little kind of rituals to get them there. It's like, well, like I understand why you need that. I understand why some people need to turn themselves on kind of psychologically like that. But at the same time, what happens, like you say with the music, what happens if that's not there? You need to be able to turn yourself on. And relying on something is just not necessarily the right way of doing it. While I appreciate it works for people, it's something that I used to do, and it's something I've moved well away from now.
Yeah, I think you know, with things like runs especially, it makes it harder too. It does just make it harder not having any sort of like just being stuck in your own head. And do you know what though, at the end of the day though, if someone's on a run and like, you know, that's their time away maybe from family or like the kids, and they want to listen to an audiobook or a podcast, or like that obviously is fine. I'm not saying that like you shouldn't do that and you're any less of like, but like, yeah, it's not in that sense, it's not necessarily a stimulation. Like you're just trying to get in a bit of peace and quiet and some time to yourself. And do a bit of learning or something, or listen to something or whatever, that's fine, and drift off, and that's fine. But like, yeah, it's using like, it's the psyching aspect of it that kind of,
it's when it becomes that crutch. It's when it's kind of like, you have to, I can only do this if I do this.
Yeah, right.
And that's what I think people should try and move away from, because at some point you won't be able to do this. So will you be able to do that if that isn't there?
Yeah.
And like I say, I fully understand why people get into those little kind of rituals, and it's really easy to fall into patterns like that. And of course, like again, because of the way our sort of minds work, it's like, let's say that I am going for that deadlift PR, and when I did that deadlift PR last time, I was listening to this song. It's really easy then for the next time to associate that song with a heavy lift. So I see how these things happen, but I think that's just something to get away from. Well, at least for me anyway. And obviously it sounds exactly the same for you.
Same for me.
I remember like seeing like going back to Goggins, I remember him talking about it on like Joe Rogan and stuff like that, where he was just like, no, it's like no music. It's like, if you in your head, you're battling yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing. And it's like, I think as well, sometimes it's like, especially when you're thinking longer distance marathons, ultras and things like that, it's like, you do need your head. You need to like be talking yourself through that run. You need to be in that moment. And quite often in those later stages, it's like no amount of music is going to kind of distract you from what's going on. Like, there is a point where like the kind of pain of it does take over, and you need to be able to then have a good mentality and a good mindset to talk yourself through those later stages. Because certainly with a marathon upwards, really, the last kind of 8 to 10k onwards, it's all mental. At that point, it's like as soon as your head goes in that point, it's gone. And of course, if your song doesn't play at that point, then that could be the end of your run. Yeah,
like what happens when you go to the gym and like your headphones break? What are you gonna do? Like just not push as hard. Like
it's the same as like people that wear like running watches, their Garmin's or Apple watches, whatever it might be. I had so many conversations with people. They're like, I didn't do my run today. It's like the battery was flat, or I didn't do my run today. It's like my heart rate monitor wasn't working properly. It's like, why not? It's like, don't just rely on that one piece of technology. It's like, oh, my watch failed, but I can still go and run for an hour. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't need my watch to tell me that I've just been outside and I run for 90 minutes or an hour or whatever it might be. I don't need to know how many calories my watch thinks I burned or what pace I was running. It's like, I can still just go out there and do those things. Intervals, it's like I can count to 20 seconds in my head as I do my sprints. There's things like that. It's like, and I think it's maybe just a modern way of thinking, is we rely on too much on other things. So whilst I do track all of my runs on my watch, it's like if I ever started running and I look down and my heart rate's like 225 on my watch. It's like, well, that's clearly not my heart rate. But I'm not giving up on this run because of it.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's just a tech failure today. It is what it is. Keep going.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah,
brilliant.
good stuff.
It's good to end on that.
I think so.
Brilliant. Right, that's episode 9 in the bank.